the Jill and Stacie Show.
Boone County students' records were compromised, and it included the student's name, ID, Medicaid number, health data, individualized education program, which is your IEP information, address, telephone number, email, date of birth, enrollment status, race, gender, behavior records, and education records. Our Boone County students had their data breached. If your kid goes to a Boone County public school, their information may have been compromised. And if they did, you should have gotten a letter from the Boone County School District. So Boone County Republican Party sent out a newsletter last week, brought attention to the fact that this breach happened on December 3rd. All of the affected students, guardians, or parents received a letter from the district, which we'll share here in a minute. So if you want to stay on top of what's going on in Boone County, you want to jump on Boone County Republican Party's page, bcrpky.net. Go over here to Get News, put in your email, name, and then if you're registered in Boone County. If not, no big deal. So here's the letter that was shared. This went out December 20th to the families. Boone County Schools discovered a highly sophisticated phishing scheme that targeted a special education staff member's email account. And this was not a typical phishing attempt. It was designed to closely mimic a Dropbox login and has impacted multiple districts across the state. This investigation, which concluded on December 19th, determined that a malicious application was used to access the staff member's inbox. Although there is no direct evidence of misuse, we have reason to believe that the inbox was copied. So they're saying that approximately 200 records, Boone County students' records, were compromised, and it included the student's name, ID, Medicaid number, health data, individualized education program, which is your IEP information, address, telephone number, email, date of birth, enrollment status, race, gender, behavior records, and education records. And I'm assuming it's just the kiddos that have IEPs. And Stacie, I know you've done some research on other schools that this has happened to, and I know that Boone County is offering up assistance with fraud alerts, contacting Equifax and all those companies, but I just feel like that's just another company that's going to data mine you.
Here's the burden: is this is a child and a child's information. So now you need to monitor your child's credit accounts, even though they're not probably even old enough to have credit. That one event that you went to where two former public school students had said their identities were stolen before they even got out of high school. How did they even figure out that it was stolen? Didn't they go to buy something?
I believe so. You know, they tried to maybe apply for a loan or financial aid for college, and hey, guess what? Your social security number was compromised and your ID has been stolen.
So a lot of times these kids aren't even going to know,
Right.
assuming the parents have even opened this email. And then my concern too is it was a special education teacher. Are these special education students? I mean, I'm not exactly sure whose information was hacked, but considering the information it says was taken, I'm assuming a lot of these were special needs kids. This is very concerning. A lot of the research that I've done has talked about this is a daily occurrence. This happens all the time, and that K through 12 education is the number one target for these issues because, one, it says that they do not have sophisticated systems to protect this information and that they house such valuable information and sensitive information. And this is not new, and it's increasingly gotten worse over time. And so it's a matter of if this has been going on for 10 plus years and this is an issue and they haven't figured out how to truly secure this information, maybe we need to talk about how the information is stored and what information is even collected in order to protect the students.
It looks like there's a new IT director, Kyle Berberick. This is how you say his name. Who was it before? Wasn't it Rankin?
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
So
But I mean, regardless, this stuff is so sophisticated.
right.
I talked to somebody who works for a very large financial corporation just the other day, and she was saying that the company actually holds hackers events And any of the hackers that are successful at hacking their systems, they actually hire them to protect their systems. Let's show people the research and how you can do your own research to see this for yourself. So K through 12 cybersecurity statistics. You can look this stuff up yourself. CISA is a federal government agency. It says that they target K through 12 education system mainly because they maintain extensive personal and financial data about students, teachers, school staff, and records. But most educational districts lack the resources to implement a comprehensive cybersecurity program. Not to mention, again, the United States military had to create an entire branch of the military just for this purpose, for cybersecurity. If that tells you anything, that even if they had the most sophisticated programs in place, that's constantly changing. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think they should be taking some information and how they house it. Like, I just don't think they should have it in general. And parents, just in case you didn't know, you actually do not have to give the public schools your child's social security number. They will tell you you do, but you do not. And they will try to hold keys money over your head, but they can't. You do not have to give them your child's social security number. And to me, this is just an argument as to why you wouldn't want to do that. K through 12 schools, cyber incidents are so prevalent that on average, there's more than one incident per school day.
Wow.
Yeah. Education under siege, how cyber criminals target our schools. And actually, Microsoft does seminars for educators specifically. And you can just look those up. They have them on a public platform where you can take the seminar yourself. But they talk about how staff in schools and teachers really are not properly trained in protecting student data. Interestingly enough, I found seminars where they were actually teaching teachers how to be better data miners of the students.
Oh,
they put that out there.
Well, in my job, we have to have so much per quarter training on cybersecurity because every corporation that we deal with and us were compromised at one point. So now it's extremely important, and you will get reprimanded if you do not take these classes. And there are questions asked at the end of each video to better educate you. Just common sense stuff, like don't put certain stuff on social media. Don't be sharing too much stuff. Or when you're out traveling, don't use free Wi-Fi. Duh. It's just common sense stuff that maybe some people don't understand. And I don't know, did these teachers have Chromebook education down in Frankfurt or wherever they went to school? Do they have the education on how to protect themselves as well as the kids? I doubt it.
So that's the other thing. I was actually talking to a teacher about the Chromebooks specifically. And I said, if you're really interested in protecting a child's information, then the Chromebook should not actually be signed into by the student with their Gmail account, with the information that goes along with that, because their Gmail accounts are their first dot last name at child school. I'm sorry, that right there is violating the PII federal laws, because these children are not supposed to be identifiable while they're online. Right there, you just identified them. Their Gmail accounts are attached to the school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so there is a trail of information that identifies the student. So first, I was telling the teacher, if you want to assign a Chromebook because you need the kids to do an assignment on there, the teacher should have some printed out Chromebook number 28 belongs to the student. And the child should not be identified while using the Chromebook in the digital settings. There should be no identifiers of this child. The only person who should be able to identify that particular Chromebook belongs or is being used by student X should be the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. The fact that, okay, you're logging into third parties, you're logging into Google, you're using a Google Chromebook, all those places have this information that can identify the student and essentially mine the child. I mean, the other part, Jill, we use AWS servers.
Oh,
and
Amazon.
Yes,
Great.
Amazon. So I encourage parents to go on K through 12 education AWS servers and look at the ads that Amazon's promoting about how they can run analytics through your child's information and that they will protect it from other companies doing this. But do you want Amazon doing that? I mean, your child's identified and they can run analytics through any of the data that's coming through the device because it's housed on their servers. And they openly talk about how they can do this as a sales pitch for the schools. So just things that we need to look into, because we're living in a day and age where I don't think a lot of people understand how the devices work, how data works. There's a really great article called Data is the New Oil. And that's an old article. I want to say it's from 2017, maybe 16. But if you look at that article and what it's saying, it's talking about taking the data, running it through machine learning. Once they're through that process, then they can take the data and run analytics on it. And once you run analytics through some data, you can really manipulate people once you have that information. Mm-hmm. And the article talks about, in a global sense, he who has the data can run the world. So I encourage everyone to go look up that article so that you have a better grasp on why they would even want the data to begin with. So you have people taking data so they can steal your credit. You have people taking your data, for warfare. But you have people taking data, running analytics and predictive analytics. That to me seems very sinister in a way that it can be used to manipulate you in the future.
Well, it could blackmail the parents or guardians or whoever. So much stuff.
And there's no telling 5-10 years from now. Imagine if the government or a government, even an enemy government, having information on you, Jill, from the time you were 3 years old. How manipulative can you be?
Right.
If you have all this sensitive private information? And I'm talking about surveys. I'm talking about the mental health data that they're collecting. That article or the letter that the Boone County Schools sent out, it said health data. There's being health data that's integrated in these systems. That panorama, if you look it up, houses every bit of data about your child, grades, attendance, behavior, surveys. A lot of times these schools will pitch that you're doing projects online. Well, a lot of the projects also are collecting private information on the student and how the student thinks, the religious views. There's a lot more to it that's going into the devices and how this information can then be used.
Yeah, it's personal information, what's going on at home. Does mom and dad have guns? Do they do drugs? Do you do drugs? These are the questions that are being asked.
Well, not just in surveys, but some of these students have told me about projects that they've done. And their projects are in their Google Chromebook, where it's been talking about, the family's belief system and religion and other information. And I'm like, that just should not be put in these platforms. Specifically, that was a Summit personalized learning project, which I don't know if parents know that Boone County Schools was part of the piloting of that program, this personalized AI learning. It's a model where the schools told us that the children moved at their own pace. It was self-paced learning, but it was way more than that. Personalized learning takes the analytics from your child and the data and customizes an individual curriculum. And if you think what some of these schools teach is bad, imagine if you don't have a human there that has a conscience to teach you, and that you've just allowed Facebook to program your child's curriculum, because that's where that came from, was Facebook. Teachers were sent to Facebook headquarters to learn to be mentors, not teachers, because they didn't need them to teach.
Silicon Valley. Yep. I remember that.
And we found some articles where they were talking about AI classrooms are already rolling out. I think there was one rolled out in the United States and some other countries already where they don't have teachers because they're using the personalized learning program model.
I'm gonna guess California.
I honestly don't remember where it was in the United States, but we are seeing that starting to roll out.
Yeah.
And our teachers in Boone County Schools, if any of you are listening, some of you guys have taken grants from the National Science Foundation to record your classrooms, and you were told that was for scaling. What do you think that's for? And you didn't get paid for that. The school got the grant money, and that is your work. Your work they're scaling. Like that to me is just crazy. I feel like they're stealing from our teachers.
What school was that where the teacher was digging into personal information? Was that
Oh my
Ackerman?
gosh, Ackerman,
Yeah.
yes.
The teacher was targeting some girl, a male teacher,
Yes.
and it was
Yes.
digging around in her file.
Yep. Which is another reason it just information should be protected. These are children. The
Right.
information needs to be protected. The fast and loose, we're playing with all the data that's collected and putting it into dashboards and running analytics, and just is insane to me. Unfortunately, adversaries have targeted our K through 12 education system due to the extensive amounts of personal and financial data they maintain about our kids, teachers, school staff, and records on the schools themselves. CISA.gov actually has a bunch of information about this. So people can go look that up themselves and do their own research. I like how we use documents and other government websites that have the information, and we pull it up for the people, and yet the Boone County Schools Administration tries to label us as misinformation. I'm like, excuse me, I got the receipts there, sir, right here. Well, and I just wonder how many times this happened and people aren't notified that something happened. Well, and I bet this teacher, because I feel like they've identified a sole teacher who basically had this data breach happen. Like that person probably feels terrible. And
Oh, I'm
honestly,
sure.
but they say that teachers are targets because there was I think it was a CISA document I read about K through 12 education, and it said that teachers are an easy target for cyber crimes because if it comes through a school email, they are likely to reply or click on it because it's their job, like it's coming through their employer. But two, because they are very compliant people, like they do what they're asked to do. So a lot of times that's why they're easier targets,
Right.
because they typically do not buck any sort of system or question things coming through their employer. And I can tell you that teachers are easily propagated. And
Well, yeah,
that's
when you question them about the curriculum for one, and you ask them, why are you teaching them this way? This is ridiculous. It takes so much longer to find an answer if you did it the way that you and I would have learned. But they reply with, we have to teach to the curriculum. I said, well, he doesn't take state testing, so I don't want him to learn this way. So you have that option, parents, because you're in charge, BTW. You don't have to do anything.
I feel like parents have just abdicated their power. They're so overwhelmed in life in general that they've
Right.
just handed their kids over. Plus, it is something to be said about abdicating your power, because I feel like one of the overarching agendas has been to take power from the parents in the child's eyes, even. And I'll use the truancy and the attendance. Every school makes up their own. There is no state standard for truancy. So, like, one school can say you get 6 parent notes, and after that, your child's truant. I'm sorry. Who is the parent? Big Daddy government, you're not my parent. I'm the parent. And if I want to take my child out for a family reunion and I need more than 6 parent notes, because one day is a parent note. I mean, they have given themselves all this power to dictate what you can and can't do with your own child. And that reflects to the children that the school's in charge, not the parent. And I feel like the whole system has done this injustice to families and to parents. Again, if there's a problem with the child, the teacher knows there's a problem with the child. The teacher knows if there's issues at home. They've put all these things in place. And I think it's been to let the children know your parents are dumb. They can't do your math, right? And we get to tell your parents when you can and can't be at school. I mean, some of these schools are, if your child misses more than 2 days, they have to have a doctor's note. It's $165 for my child to go see the doctor. And if they got the flu, they don't need medicine from the doctor. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but I'm going to be extorted $165 to get a note to suffice the government. Like, this is just insane to me, but I feel like it's whittled away at parents' rights. Other than that, I feel like they're just trying to convince our children that we're not even in charge of our own children, that they're in charge of all of us. It's obnoxious.
What kind of individual would you like to be in charge of your child's data? Like, who would you want to be the director of technology? What would they be their background?
IT, cybersecurity, maybe. Please, Jill, tell me.
This is our director of technology. His experience.
Just another example of how the district employs their buddies to move up to administrative office positions instead of hiring qualified individuals to do the actual jobs that they need.
There you go, folks. That is your director. That's kind of an important job, you would think.
Well, according to CISA, they are the most targeted for cyber attacks. And they house very sensitive information. It says, while some protection exists under current law, Reidenberg recommended the laws be updated to offer students more protection. Those laws are the FERPA, Privacy Act of 1973, which is FERPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which is COPPA, COPPA, and the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, PPRA. And I would add personally the PII, Personal Identifiable Information Protections.
Well, which is what was compromised in this last data breach.
Yes. The other statutes, COPPA, Parental Consent Online Collection of Data Directly from Children Younger than 13, and PPRA, primarily addressing the use of data collected from in-school surveys and some marketing activities, similarly suffer from significant protection gaps in the context of cloud computing that the Fordham study explains. So what Kentucky did, which is ridiculous, and I think we still need to work on this with legislators, is they created an opt-out, which drives me crazy, because anything you're doing with my child, you shouldn't be able to just do unless I figure out that you're doing it and I see an opt-out form come across my email. You should have to ask permission. Remember the permission slips to go on field trips? You had to sign that.
Right.
You had to give them permission to take your child somewhere.
So it needs to be an opt-in.
Yes, you need to get permission from parents, and it needs to be informed consent. Not just a blanket of you break it, you buy it, they're using this device. I mean, it needs to be true informed consent. These are the platforms and programs your child will be using. Your child will be identified in this platform, this program, this company. Like, who gets the information? And to be honest about who gets the information. A lot of times these contracts, and it says it in this article too, that even when you're not contracting with the companies any further, there is no discussion on how the data that they've already collected on your child is destroyed. That's not even something that is brought up. So Meehan, the congressman, said the question is, how is the data used? There are limitless uses. If something is required by schools and school sanctioned, how the information is used and stored, how protected is the derivative used by a third-party vendor? And I can tell you very little thought actually goes into any of this. I mean, we've done research on this.
Right.
I don't know. This is where I say, parents, if you care, do research on this. There is a way to opt out of anything that maybe you've allowed that you are now in disagreement with. We can post a link to a website, councilfored.org, has templates. So you can use the template, print it out, put your information on it, or you can use the template and design your own. It's like Jill said, parents are in charge. You still are in charge. And then contact your state rep, your state senator, and tell them that you want permission slips, opt-ins. You don't want to have to figure out how to opt out. I mean, what if you didn't get the email? I mean, they're expecting to send an email of an opt-out, and if you don't see it, I guess what? Like, how do you know if a parent even sees that?
Mm-hmm.
Very irresponsible on everyone's behalf.
Protect our privacy. Parents are in charge.